Hello, my friend, and welcome to Beyond, the personal growth podcast for the people who are healing beyond their conditioning and beyond the cycles that played out before them. My name is Katie Lynn, and with 20 years of experience in the field of psychology and human behavior, I am bringing my natural curiosity, expertise, and personal life experiences here for discussions that are guaranteed to be informative, inspiring, and entertaining. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Okay, Bri, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. What are we diving into? What's up for you?
The biggest thing is my sense of identity, all of the different layers that are tied into that as a mom, as a woman, as a working professional, looking at how much has changed for me in a very, very short period of time and dealing with all of the transitions and all of the feelings and all of the uncertainty that comes up in that, trying to find new ways to be proud of myself and new ways to settle into the new life that I have that I love, but it's so different. And I don't have the same reactions to things because everything is so different.
Different in compared to what?
I would say compared to the entire rest of my life and where I thought I would be at this point and where I was going. And what I mean by that is I have always had a full-time job and I have always cared so deeply about having a career. And that became 97% of my identity. How much I made, where I was working, what my title was, how hard I worked, how often I worked, the sacrifices that I made in order to have that career. I love working. There have been points in my life where I would have a full-time job and that should have been all that I needed. And it was all that I needed, but I had drive enough in me to do more. So then I would get a part-time job just for fun, not because I needed the money, but just like I could kind of push myself a little bit more right now. So let's find another outlet. And I don't have that now. There's a piece of me that feels like that got taken away from me against my will, even though I knew that I needed to step away from where I was and leave the position that I was in. So last October, I resigned from a work environment that was not healthy for me and thought I would jump into something right away. Realized I needed to take a few months to process and become okay with what happened, how it made me feel, basically just heal from that previous work experience. When I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to dive back in, like I was going on interviews. I don't think I got a second interview anywhere, maybe at one place. And it became really clear that like, this isn't working. Because in that same period of time, we got pregnant. And now I'm big. We've accepted that I'm not going to get hired at 4 or 5 months pregnant. That would be highly unlikely. My husband and I have found a new journey for ourselves. And it's one that we're both excited about. And it's one that he sees as like, we got this. It's going to be like, this is what we should have been doing all along. And I'm a little bit more apprehensive to accept that just because everything has been tied up in career for me. Everything has been tied up in, I make my own money. I have my own title. I have this thing that is mine, that is separate, that I can go to, that I can rock and feel pride in. This is my special thing. And now that's disintegrated. And I find myself being a stay-at-home mom. We're running my husband's company. So that's not mine. My body is not mine right now. I am a vessel for life. Beautiful. But also I'm not just mine anymore. The home that is my office, I'm like answering emails and doing dishes and laundry and taking care of like putting kids' toys away. And so I kind of don't feel like anything is mine anymore.
Yeah. I heard you say the word pride, something I can feel proud of. And you mentioned previous work and making your own money and having your own thing. There's something subtle that I would love to get your confirmation on, though. I'm wondering if it's pride or if it's safety.
I think it's both. I think that attached to the pride came autonomy, going from making 6 figures running multi-million-dollar companies gave me a level of autonomy that I felt really proud of. And tied into that was financial safety. Because if something goes wrong with my partner, if something goes wrong with my kids, if something goes wrong with my car, if something goes wrong with whatever, I have the autonomy and I have the power and I have the money to keep us safe.
Yes.
So I don't I don't have that right now.
How does that feel in your body? That statement of, I don't have autonomy.
It feels like this, it's almost like a tingling, overwhelming vulnerability of for literally the first time since I was 15 years old. I have not been regularly earning a paycheck, and I am 35 years old, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to feel about that because I miss that autonomy and I miss that safety. And we have my husband and I have such a healthy relationship, communicate about everything. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. And right now, we have conversations about every single purchase. Like even down to like grocery stores, we're like looking at things. We're like, how low are we on this? Do we really need this? Like we're okay, but for the first time ever, things are tight. There's so much that I miss about that autonomy and safety and pride of being able to like, yeah, I can go buy this thing. I can go take care of that thing. I'm going to take my man out to dinner. There was so much that I cared about in that.
Do you have any idea where this might come from?
I think if we're going like back into even my childhood, like I saw this in my parents. Like I saw my dad work so hard over a really, really long and impressive and successful career to provide for our family to get to a point where he is now. He's like 5 years away from retiring. And it's just to watch like where he started when I was born. I think he was driving an ice cream truck to the extremely successful businessman that he is now. In my head, I'm like, that's what I saw, so that's what I must do.
I appreciate this reflection so much because one of the things our generation experienced, and even the generations after us, is the climate of the household structure and organization was really changing when we were born. We were going from men being the primary breadwinners to now our mothers entered the workforce. A lot of households, because of the way the economy was, started to become double income households both out of necessity and out of trying to create something different for their children. The thing that's ironic about this is, as daughters to these really passionate, hardworking men, from the father's perspective of, I need to empower her so she can take care of herself. What can happen in these dynamics, and this, you may have noticed this in yours, we're affirmed growing up as girls for how well we do at taking care of ourselves and at achieving these milestones, and not just doing something, but doing something well, right? Yes. Doing it to excellence. And this can be such a beautiful quality. And it also can become the box within which we source our worthiness, our safety, our viability,
our value.
Our value. Yes. And what's happened in the last year to 6 months is your box has been blown up. And now it's like, what in the world is this? How do I find myself in it? That is the point at which I would invite you to look beyond the name on the door and the titles and go deeper into qualities and characteristics.
Yeah, it's almost like I blew the box at myself.
Yes.
And then when I saw what I had done, I was like, okay, I'm ready to put it back together. And I couldn't. And now I've got like all of this open space around me to fill. And I'm like, still on the door isn't going to do that.
Yes. The other thing that happens, and maybe this will resonate for you, is sometimes we get so caught up in a dream and a vision that we forget to manifest beyond it. So I personally experienced that moment where I sat down with my husband, and now we're a family of 4. All of the dreams that I had in my world came true. And I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and I'm like, I didn't dream beyond this point. I don't know what's next because I didn't, my brain stopped here. So the invitation is looking at the qualities and the characteristics of the life that you want to design from this point forward.
And accepting that it is going to look different than anything I ever imagined previously or have experienced.
Yeah. And that's where it can be such a beautiful process for you to examine the context through which your world is created. And what I mean by context is that box. It's sort of like we keep trying to do what works, but we're not the same people anymore. So we can't go back. We've got to redesign. I see you at a drawing board, blank canvas, rather than what do I want my life to look like? The new question is, who do I want to be in this next chapter of my life, the quality of woman. Who is she and how does she move and how does she think?
Yeah.
What does that bring up for you when you hear it?
The first thing that comes to mind is like, I'm picturing myself like sitting on the beach alone thinking about it, because it's not something that I've had the time to consider. It's not something that I've even given myself the space internally to consider, that there are parts of me that want to grow. There are parts of me that I'm ready to let go of. That is a really important starting point. And I want to be this, but I don't know how. My brain is like, well, you're going to need to ask people, you're going to need role models. And so it's almost like my brain in the background is like, okay, how are we going to do this?
And that's the dance. That's the co-creation. And I love this idea of you taking some time for yourself. And it could be multiple.
How do you not feel guilty about that though? Like as a mom, I'm like, I'm going to
Great
have
question.
to do that between
Yeah.
gymnastics and
I would love to offer to you what I did, faced with the same thing. My box has been blown up. I'm now going from being a multiple six figure entrepreneur to stay at home mom, right? Which I was so grateful for. Like my husband gifted me the opportunity to be present with my children. And it's forever changed us in terms of our relationship dynamics and who I am with my kids and who they are with us. It's just the most special and priceless thing ever. And the research is starting to show that the indicators for confident, healthy children are the happiness of the mother. There's starting to be a correlation there. That's the frame that I bring myself back to when I feel guilty. My frequency, my vibration, who I am being, how nourished I am, how well taken care of I am, is going to have a direct influence on my children. And if I want the best for them, I've got to be willing to be a stand to be the best for me first. If the guilt comes up, I love to say, acknowledge it.
yeah.
I feel guilty. It doesn't feel so great. I'm going to take this 4-hour time period, 6-hour time period. Because I think the old version of us, at least for me, I was like, I need a weekend. And it's like, okay, girl, you're not getting a weekend.
No.
You're going to get, and you don't really want a weekend. Because for me, like in the first 2 years of my little one being little, I just didn't want to leave him overnight. I didn't feel comfortable with that. Taking these time periods of just 2 to 3 hours at a time where you could go sit somewhere beautiful, journal for a while, think about it for a while, be in your own space, like a full evening. One of my favorite things to do was like going down to day spa where you could just buy a day pass, and I would just be at the day spa, and my husband was just like, go, and I would just sit in the water and sit in the sauna and then come out and journal, go back in, come out and journal some more, have space to ideate. And then I could go home to my babies, and they would have a fun day with dad or grandma or whoever they were with. And then they would be happy to see me when I got home. And so it really worked out as a win-win, but it does take this time to like rethink about things, because like we said earlier, you did metaphorically blow up your box. So the whole way that you think, the way you conceptualize yourself, the way you conceptualize the world is changing. And it's right on time with your development, the milestone birthday that you're about to have, the astrology, which, I'm a geek about. You're right on time. The universe has just handed you a fresh canvas and all these art supplies.
Yeah. One of the biggest resources I have is my husband, who also is in that, like, here's the gift. You don't have to work during this pregnancy for the first time. You can take care of yourself. If you need to rest, you can rest. And there's so much in me that's like, I feel guilty because I've only ever worked during pregnancies. I should feel guilty because I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. And he is also encouraging me to do exactly this. And I'm the one resisting the process. I'm the one resisting taking that time and giving myself that space and actually using all of the blank canvas that I have in front of me to create something.
Yeah. If you do take that time, what's the fear? What happens?
What is coming up for me to answer that question is being able to follow through, continue with the actions and continue with the motion that is going to change everything. It's a change that's going to occur inside of me. And that has to then manifest itself with changes externally as well. Like when I went through my divorce, everything changed for me. My body changed, my environment changed, everything changed. And then I was able to call in a wonderful partner. And this kind of feels like I'm divorcing the workaholic that was inside of me. And I need to let that go. And I know that that is going to change so much. And part of me is like, are we all ready for that change? Am I ready for that change? Are the 2 existing children ready for that change? Is my husband ready for that change? Which I know he is, because he's like, I can tell you're growing. Breathe into that a little bit.
Yeah. And what you're speaking to that I hear is a vulnerability. The trickiest thing about identity, like the evolution of our identities, because I know you've done a lot of healing work and it's beautiful. And your world is reflecting it back to you just over and over and over again. And the more healing work we do, the deeper we go, the bigger the thing is that comes up, the more foundational it is. And so when I heard you say, I'm going to divorce the workaholic, there's so much to be said for how much comfort competency brings us.
Yeah.
The thing that I really clung to with regard to like business and career and degrees and certifications and licenses, I can do this. I can go to an office and I can be excellent in my work and have that daily reflection, validation from my job that, Katie, you're good at this. You're good at this. And I remember taking my business full time in 2018 and sitting in the kitchen and looking out the window and being like, it's me and the squirrel. You know, there is nobody here to clap for me, to cheer me on. It's me. The other thing I'd offer in this space, and you mentioned it briefly earlier, is community and mentorship. It doesn't have to be a huge investment, 50 to 70K for a private coach or a mastermind group. It could be local chapters of women who are creating something, women who are in business, because you still are in business, right? You low key dropped, I'm the CEO of my husband's company. You just like sprinkled that in there. Like it wasn't like, that's a big deal to be sitting as a CEO of a company. If anything, it requires more because you got to design everything internally and implement it with the person that you love, the love of your life, right? Like it's a next level to go into business and partnership and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Finding ways to consciously affirm yourself and to surround yourself with people who can reflect that back to you, just so that you have a continued sense of like, I'm doing something and I exist. Because I think that's one of the things that women wrestle with. And I know that I wrestled with it after my second baby and not working full time. Like I've always carried a client roster, but like I minimized it. I didn't do any marketing. And there would be days where I would be so in the thick of just life that you get to the end of the day and I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah.
And did I exist?
Yeah.
It's like,
that is the biggest thing. Did I exist for anyone outside of the children and the squirrels?
Yes. And you know what that unlocked for me personally? Service.
And that has not been a high priority in my life up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that's like, what does that look like for me? And what does that mean for me? Because I've never had the opportunity to explore it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny that you even say like that about finding ways to kind of just affirm that I exist. Lincoln, who's almost 6, will go, Mommy, do you have a job yet? And I go, oh no, not yet. But then, like you said, like, no, I am doing this other work. It's just not what he's used to seeing of me getting dressed in work clothes and leaving and then coming back at dinner time. That because it doesn't look the same way, I'm invalidating myself and I'm invalidating the work that I'm doing with my partner. We're still creating a business. We're still doing everything that I was doing. It just looks so different that I'm having a hard time even accepting that is still a career. That is still a job. That is still me working. I'm just doing it in yoga pants in a kitchen, cleaning sippy cups.
There's nothing that says that you couldn't adopt some of those previous structures. Have a routine where it's like, I'm in work mode. I don't touch household stuff. These are my work hours. If I was working a traditional job, you wouldn't come kiss me in the middle of my work day, right? That would be problematic. Giving yourself that gift, even if you put on a different outfit or you do something that's just a little bit different to signal to your brain and signal to the rest of you that, oh, it's time, right? So for me, it's putting my shoes on. And I know that's so random, but when I have shoes on, my brain just works differently. We see it with kids. So like my little one knows it's nap time because we go put our sleep sack on. This is what is nourishing and beneficial, especially for your brain, to transition into a certain state, which is work mode, and then back out of it.
I think what that would be for me is putting a watch on. But I think that'll be the thing that is like, no, you're in put together, go mode. I love that.
Yep. in this process, we have your internal deep dive, right? Where you're taking these time periods for yourself, reflect on who am I becoming? What is the quality and characteristics of women that I want to embody? What do I want my family to experience of me? What do I want the world to experience of me? What really matters for me in terms of legacy? There's also something really interesting that I feel like happens at 35 that I had never heard of until I turned 35. And it's this legacy thing that comes online for us as women. And it feels different and sounds different than it does for men. Because when I hear men talk about their legacy, they talk about what they want to leave behind. They talk about what they want to create for their children. As a woman, though, when we think about our legacy and we start to realize, oh, 40 is around the corner, I'm looking 40 in the face, we start to wonder what aspects of our identity have we put on the shelf and we haven't actualized yet.
Yeah.
What are the archetypes that we want to activate and embody? What skills, what passions, what loves, and we drop deeper into our hearts. And that's why I dropped service in front of you, because I know how big your heart is. And I know that if we dug even deeper into why work, it would have to do with contributing to the world and being a part of the world. And that's the point where it's bringing up all the feels. There can also be this little chatter of like, but I'm in my mid 30s. I should know what to do by now. I should be further along by now. I should be more, whatever the fill in that blank.
I was on the path, and by this point, I was gonna be this, and this. And now I'm like starting over, but I'm not starting from scratch. I am starting over with a lot.
Yes. And so one of the things I would invite you to do, go back and re-listen to it and write down all the questions I just spoke out to take with you when you do your ideating blocks of time. And then as you reflect, look backwards and go, what do I want to bring with me? And what do I want to leave there? Because there are qualities from who you've been up until this point that you do want to bring forward. They're amazing qualities. They're so brilliant. They've been refined. They've been nurtured, right? Cultivated very intentionally, and they're a part of the fabric.
I want my kids to see.
Yes. They're a part of the fabric of who you are and what you want to contribute, like you said, to your family and the world. And then there are aspects that are going to be like, not that, no more of that. Right. And so just getting really clear on that so that you don't have to keep looking backwards for context. You can now go, these are the qualities I'm bringing forward. These are the ones I'm letting go of. Let's lean into the ones that I want to bring forward, and let's see what else I can create alongside these.
Yeah. I love that.
Because it does, when you're in this space, it does feel like zero.
Yeah.
And it can be so vulnerable. And that's where it's helpful to have this reference point when you answer these questions of like, who am I becoming? Who's the woman that I want to be? Because that will become your context for like, I did that today. Like I said, I wanted to be this woman that takes care of her health, and I nailed it today. Right. And so it's like you have something to reference rather than feeling like we get to the end of the day and we don't actually we don't define what success means for us. And so then we're like swimming in this pool of, I don't know what I did. And then the other beautiful thing about healthy partnership is that your husband will play such a beautiful role in healing the components of you that really leaned hard and relied on external validation for what you do rather than who you be.
Yeah. And that word of just worthiness of what I thought made me worthy is now not an option for me to execute. Finding the things that actually matter. Because I still exist. Like
absolutely.
I may not have whatever that job was. I may not have whatever that career trajectory was. Even though that's gone, every single thing that makes me is still in existence.
Yeah. And let me ask you something. Are your son and daughter worthy?
Very, very, and effortlessly.
And what makes them worthy?
I don't even think I could put it into words. I don't know, like just their essence, just their being, just their breathing.
You're no different.
And it's so funny because as you get indoctrinated through society, your brain and external forces are saying like, well, but yeah, in theory, except for this, and this. And it's like, if a 3 and 5-year-old are, a 35-year-old is.
Yes. I love that you said it's their essence. It's the fact that they're breathing. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else beyond that is whatever we make it to be. But our worthiness is so inherent. As you move through this, you might even reflect on it and be like, oh gosh, like worthiness conversation can be such a distraction
Yeah.
because I just am. Embrace it.
Yeah. Own it.
Yeah.
Because they do.
Yes.
They just go, I exist. I have a need. I have a want. I have a whatever.
And the frame that I love for this, rather than, I sort of flipped earning for contribution, because when we connect to our essence and we go, I am inherently worthy because I exist, I am alive, then the question becomes, how do I sprinkle this more throughout the world? And that drops me further into my heart and into creativity, and goes a bit deeper than the quote unquote earning.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like,
it's almost like connecting.
yes, how do I give?
Yeah.
And see how the world responds to that. Is there anything else?
It feels really nice to be able to talk about all of this and unpack so much of it.
Thank you for doing that. It's powerful, really beautiful. Thank you. As we complete this episode, I would love to know your insights, takeaways, and feedback. You can message me on Instagram at Katie Lynn Rojano, or send them via email to katie@katielynnrojano.com. Any products or digital downloads I mentioned can be found via the link in my Instagram bio. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to share it with at least one friend and leave a 5-star review so we can get these impactful dialogues into the lives of even more people. I would also like to thank my guest for their vulnerability and generosity in allowing us to learn from them and grow alongside them. Until next time, friends, let's go beyond.